Hi, I'm here with the Fleet Podcast, where we give you an inside look at what's happening at the Fleet. And today we're going back behind the scenes of Pandas. I have Drew Fellman with me, the writer, producer, and co-director of the film, and also Dr. Jake Owens, who's a conservation biologist who's in the film.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks
Hi.
for having us in your 1970s basement.
I know, right? I don't know if the shag carpet is seen on camera, but you're missing out if you can't see it. Yeah, thank you guys both for being here. So, Drew, what is Pandas about?
Pandas is about a effort to increase the wild panda population by introducing captive-born panda cubs into the wild. It's actually a very complicated process. And so the film shows how this effort in China was inspired by a black bear rehabilitation program in the U.S., and we follow the team of researchers and the pandas as they go through this journey together.
Great. Now, Jake, you're a conservation biologist. What does that mean? What does your work entail?
So it's the grand scheme of it is that we are interested in preserving species or populations of species for the long term, and so the nitty gritty of it means spending a lot of time in the field. I've spent years of my life living in tents all over the world, studying animals, observing animals, and then doing science to figure out how best to protect them. And then you take a lot of time in the office to manipulate data and analyze it and write it up, and then trying to communicate with people and develop policies. In China, a lot of what I'm doing is actually working individually with the pandas, which you see in the film, because we're trying to take captive-born giant pandas whose mothers and grandmothers were also born in captivity, so they don't have the wild experience to train their cubs. And so I'm I'm one of the people that's trying to help them develop the natural innate abilities that's inside each panda, so they're ready to go out and have a good chance of success once they're out.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah.
So, Jake, what's the difference between a biologist and a conservation biologist?
So a biologist is anybody who studies life and life systems, and so it can be anything from sitting in a lab and studying cells and studying the processes of cells, and then going on to field biologists like myself, who are outside most of the time trying to figure out things that are going on outside. So the biology is the bigger category, and then as a conservation biologist, I'm specifically interested in protecting life.
I'm so glad you asked that question because, yeah, a lot of times people think, oh, scientists, they wear a white coat and they're in the lab. And no, you can be outside. So if you backed off of science because you didn't want to be indoors, you can be outdoors and be a scientist too. Mm-hmm. So how did you start actually working with pandas?
I've done a lot of international conservation and research, so I've been all over the world doing this kind of work. And I was completing my PhD, which I studied a little-known monkey called the drill monkey in West Africa. And it's really elusive. It's very rare. It lives high up in mountains. It takes a lot of work to find them and study them, and that's pretty similar to the characteristics of a giant panda as well. And so as I was finishing, I received a call from this pretty well-known scientist, Jim Spatilla, who they were trying to adapt Ben Killam's method to release and rehabilitate black bears in New Hampshire to giant pandas. And so they needed somebody who was there on the ground to work with younger Chinese scientists and do that. And my expertise from field work all over the world kind of helped adapt what they were doing over there, and we all worked together in this collaborative project. So really, one day it boils down to I got a phone call and said, hey, do you want to go and help start this reintroduction program for giant pandas?
And you were like, nah.
I said, let me think about it. And then 3 days later I said yes. No, but it's a big commitment. I've been there for 4 years now, and it's going to be something I do probably for the rest of my life. So.
And Ben didn't want to leave the bears in New Hampshire, so that's why he didn't want to do it, right?
Yeah, and also, I mean, that's it's a young man's job for sure to do this, because it's, he's...
Yeah, the terrain is rugged. It's beautiful on the IMAX dome screen, but I was just thinking, to work in it, that's tough.
No, it's a full-time job, and Ben's got a full-time job with his bears. But Ben's back and forth all the time, once or twice a year as an advisor.
So why did you want to make this film, Drew?
Well, we got the idea to make this film back in 2013. I had been talking to Ben for 4 years at this point about doing something together one day, and he casually mentioned as I was leaving that he had just started this program. He just started advising this reintroduction program with pandas, and then we thought that would be a great story, because one thing that's so interesting is Ben does all of this work with just him and his sister and his wife, and together they've rehabilitated and released over 150 black bears into the forests of New England by themselves. And if
just
you've ever
3 people
and some years they have 10, 15, 20 bears. That's an incredible amount of work. And you should see their clothes. I mean, their jackets, they're all shredded at the sleeves, and they have bite marks all over their limbs. And in China, it is a much more like collective effort. There's
it's more than 3 people. Right?
Hundreds of people involved in this project, and just the cultural difference and the stylistic difference of how all these 2 projects are being implemented seemed like a really interesting way to get a sense of how conservation is taking place in different parts of the world with different bear species.
Yeah. Now, how did you get involved in the film then? So we know how you got...
Jake had no choice.
I had no choice. They said we're doing this film, and so be happy about it, basically. Before I even went to China for the first time, I was already planning on going, but I had some things to finish up in Africa, and Drew came to Philadelphia to meet with me and kind of say, hey, we're making this film, see you there, and to kind of discuss it a little bit more and figure out some of the logistics of it. But I hadn't even been there yet, so I couldn't really contribute too much at that point, but he was just making me aware. And then over the years, he and Dave Douglas, the co-director, the other co-director, would come and visit and see the status of things and meet with the leaders and the various people at Panda Base, and just develop the relationships that were necessary to actually get this done, because it's pandas are the national treasure of China, and there's a lot of scrutiny, and nobody, you can't do anything that would be considered unsafe or put them at risk or anything like that. So there's a huge amount of consideration, whereas Ben with his black bears, they can kind of just go out and the black bears are running all over the place and it's safe, but there's not so much scrutiny as with us, where it just takes a lot more effort to build the trust.
Yeah, we'll be out working in New Hampshire, and I'll be pinned under one of the black bear cubs as he's chewing on me, and Ben will come out and will be like, why are you letting them chew on you like that? I'll be like, ah. But yeah.
Yeah, there's no such thing as an easy IMAX film to make.
No, this one had its own challenges for sure.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, the 2 biggest challenges were teeth and claws.
I think I've heard something about apples being very important in the making of this film.
Yeah, when we would go into the Chen Chen, the giant panda that we're working with.
Chen Chen's the real star of the film. Sorry, Jake.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
She's preparing for the wild in this 50-acre enclosure, which is real panda habitat inside there, and outside the enclosure are wild pandas. And when we're in there with her, every member of the crew, before they can pass through that gate, needs an apple.
A safety apple.
A safety apple in their pocket. Because if Chen Chen ever decides that she's particularly interested in one of us, it's that apple. I think we were supposed to show her the apple, put it down, and just walk away. Mm-hmm. And then she'll eat that apple instead of one of us. But what's interesting is we had quite a large crew, and ultimately we ended up, with more people and apples. I don't know if people were eating the apples. I know I might have eaten a couple of them. But so, we sent someone down to the market to buy a whole new box of apples. And we learned very quickly that we bought the wrong apples. Chen
she didn't like 'em?
No. Chen is very particular of the apples she will accept as a decoy, as a alternative.
Mm-hmm.
And she likes the Fujis.
Okay.
I think the apples we bought were perhaps a little tart. She was like, nope,
Yep.
it's not going to work with me. So
Had to go and buy another box of apples.
she holds all the cards, and she gets what she wants.
Fuji apples for Chen. So what was it like trying to do your work and having a camera in your face?
So, weird. First off, weird. This whole thing is very odd. We're usually just us doing our own thing in the mountain, and it doesn't matter if you're covered in dirt and super sweaty and your hair is matted down and that kind of thing. But when you've got this camera that's super high definition and it's on you, you start to think about, oh my God, what does my hair look like? But
And then we have to worry about continuity.
yeah,
Right.
Because, we might shoot a scene, shot one year, and, the next year we're shooting a shot that, by the time we've edited together, they're up against each other, so we're always making Jake shave.
yeah.
I was going to
Right
say
now
it's
he's got
probably
a
beard
beard.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to do my bear impression, so I grew out a beard, but they kept on making me shave it. Yeah.
Yeah. But Jake's been in China for 4 years now, and in the course of this film, we, filmed in China for about 40 days. So most of the work he does, he's doing it without a camera, and
But it's a big consider. My number one priority is the panda,
Sure.
and then my second but equal priority is the safety of the people who are working with her. And so like Shelby and myself and the rest of the team that we have that work with pandas, and then you go down the line with their camera equipment and then them.
how far down the line were we?
Very far down the line. Yeah.
And now the truth comes out.
Yeah, exactly. So so for the first thing is like you said, they can't even get in the gate unless they are handed an apple, and we check that. Okay, when they go in, everything has to be well organized and then cleaned up really well afterwards immediately. And so there's a lot of
some equipment
yeah,
behind.
Yeah, exactly. There's just kind of that kind of oversight's not something that you normally have to do. But then also, the consideration of, he would say, well, we'd love to get her doing this behavior. We'd love to get her eating this kind of bamboo or something in this area because it looks really pretty for the shot, right? And so I just say, well, she's not going to go there. That's not a place she goes to do that thing. And so then we'd have to figure out, well, where would she that would fit that kind of that shot, but with the thing they're trying to shoot, the behavior. And it tended to work, like, surprisingly. I was wrong most of the time because I would say, we're never going to get that thing. We're never going to get it. We're never going to get it here. And then she would do it. And I was really constantly surprised.
You can never overestimate the vanity of a panda. If she sees that camera, she's like, sure, I'll do it. I won't do it for Jake, but for you guys. But often we would want to do a shot, and Jake would be like, well, if you want to do that, you're gonna have to, it's about a 4-hour hike to get that. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and it rains a lot. And so for us, we work in the rain every day. That's just a normal part of life. And for them, they go and set up in torrential downpour just in case it stopped raining and they're able to get a shot. But so yeah, it was a lot of work. Especially with this guy. But,
Making a wildlife, because she's not a trained actor. She's although she's captive born, that doesn't mean that she's tame or trained.
Nope,
she's not she's not an animal actor. She is still a panda, and so it's not like you can go to your mark.
No, if we on a good day, we would have about 20 minutes of her attention. Aside from that, she's just off eating, and she'll get bored with us really quick. So we can maybe we'll get a pass by. Maybe, we'll get one small little bit of behavior, and that's okay, because that's, you're lucky if you can, get a little bit every day. So that's just the process of working with untrained animals.
But also, the systems that they have make it possible because they have these remote cameras, and so they'd set the camera up in an area where they'd have a nice view of a big area, and then they would go 50 or 100 feet away behind a thick of bamboo or down a slope or something and wait there, and then we'd Shelby and I would try to see if Chen Chen would go to that area to go on a walk, and if she would, we'd get there and we had radios on, so we'd radio in and say, hey, we're going to be there in 5 minutes. And then she'd stop and eat, and so it's okay. No, she's going to be 10 minutes, and then we'd get there, and they'd get a shot, and so not having them there was, made it possible to really get
it's like,
her behavior.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like that Eddie Murphy, Steve Martin movie Bowfinger, where they're making a movie.
You're going back now.
Right. They're making a movie, and Eddie Murphy doesn't even know he's in the movie. Yeah. So ideally, it works like that, where Chen Chen, the less Chen Chen knows she's in a movie, the better chance we have.
So how did you get into making giant screen films? I mean, it's sort of an unusual job.
Yeah, I got really lucky. I started off working for Howard and Michelle Hall on a couple of their films.
Yeah, we just saw them last night.
Yep, as a diver, and they're two of my heroes, and that was an amazing experience. I just got to learn so much from them without any responsibility. Or with not that much responsibility, so that was great.
Howard and Michelle have made many films. Yeah. Probably any underwater film you've ever seen in the dome, Howard and Michelle made.
Yep, and then I've just had the pleasure of working with an amazing team of IMAX professionals. David Douglas, who's been my partner on this series of films we've made, Born to be Wild, Island of Lemurs, and now this one. Dave's been working in IMAX since he was a teenager. From the very beginning of it. Building the first. Help build the first projector and the first cameras and all of that.
We've got projector number 2 here.
Okay.
So
there you go.
He built that one. Yep.
So and everyone we're working with are just really incredible technicians, which makes the challenge of working in IMAX a bit easier because I'm surrounded by people that know it so well.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Jake, but David Douglas, the co-director of Pandas, called you the Indiana Jones of biologists.
Whoa, yeah. I did not. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Do you earn that title?
No, definitely not. But
I think that's just because Jake hates snakes.
No, I love snakes. Yeah. Well, actually, I just got this leather jacket because I was going for Indiana Jones. Just
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I've got a huge amount of respect for him. He's a fascinating guy. Actually, all the IMAX guys are, and it's been really rewarding working with them because they just know they're basically engineers of everything, about engineers of making films, engineers of equipment, and the way that they can figure out that kind of stuff. I just sit back and watch them while they're working. They'd be in a little shack that's next to Chen Chen's enclosure, just working with these systems, and to get exactly what they needed. But also they've worked all over the world, and there's a lot of similarities between their work and the life of like an international field biologist like myself, and so yeah, it was really fascinating working with him, and he, Dave is just awesome. He's like a really cool guy, but also just huge amount of experience and knowledge about animals and nature and also film.
Yeah, I mean we haven't used the same camera system, on any film, that Dave and I have done. We're always seems like we're building a new camera like for each film, and we never have time to really test it before we start. Even on this film, we ended up working, I think we used 5 different camera systems by the time we were done.
Wow.
And so a lot of mornings, the whole half of the day will just be rebuilding it, making it work, troubleshooting some unexpected thing that came up. So that's a whole it's always an unexpected part of the challenge, but just the technical aspect of it is very daunting all the time.
For sure. But that's what creates these glorious images.
That's right. I mean, we're always trying to push the boundaries and get to the best image quality we can and find new ways to move the camera around. And for this film, our team developed a new drone platform which was able to lift the IMAX cameras and get all this incredible footage we'd never would have been able to get
Oh, that's
in
amazing.
China. But what's even cooler is these same guys are now working with Jake to develop a drone platform for scientists to pull the data off tracking collars. So like where Jake works, it could be very, very difficult to pinpoint the source of a GPS signal because the mountains are so steep and there's really intense valleys and the signals ping pong around. But by sending a drone up in the air, they're able to pick it up fairly instantaneously and pinpoint.
So having it automatically go out and find where this animal is huge. Like one of the biggest factors to determine the success of an individual animal in a lot of reintroduction programs is the intensity of post-release monitoring and assistance. So the more help you can give them, the more you can monitor each animal, the better chance they have at surviving. And especially with one of our programs where you use human assistance, that's key. I mean, that's critical to it. And we have the ability to go and change Chen Chen's collar and check her health and give her medicine if she needs it or whatever it is that she needs. But if you can't find her, then that eliminates all that benefit. And so what we found, this is some of the most difficult habitat I've worked in anywhere. I worked in tropical West Africa. I've worked in mangrove forests in the Keys. I've worked all over the place, and it can take me an hour or 2 hours to go 100 meters just because you're basically trying to worm your way through this really dense bamboo. And so having the ability to find where she is in this massive reserve and then go there and do the groundwork can cut off a week or more of just the initial location. And so that's for the movie is fantastic and telling people this story is really awesome, but this could potentially be a real game changer for our work and other conservation projects. So I'm really indebted to these guys for this opportunity to have this system built.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yay, IMAX.
So everyone should invite a film crew to their project, and then it'll change your life in
You can
unexpected
come up
ways.
to my office and film me working after this. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Just tolerate us for 4 years.
It would be my pleasure. What do you both hope that people will take away from the film?
For me, there's lots of things, but if I had to kind of condense it down, I'd say it's realizing that conservation is not just an abstract idea. It's something that is really hard work, that people are out there in the field, people and animals, working side by side, to make this planet a better place for wildlife. And, we want people to get involved in that battle. We want people to become conservationists. And I think the best way to do that is to show what that work's really like and to show the rewards of it. And I can't think of anything more rewarding than going through this journey with Chen Chen, of taking someone from a captive-born animal who really has no life ahead of her except being in a display case and giving her the opportunity to be wild and have freedom and have a life that you wouldn't have even imagined possible when she was born. I mean, and that's kind of conservation in a nutshell right there.
One of the things that struck me when I first saw parts of the film was that it's not your typical nature documentary, because the human social part of it is a major storyline in it. And so my experience working as a conservation biologist around the world is that you work with people from everywhere, and everybody has their own expertise. You have people who never they went to a few years of elementary school in a small village in Africa and the best field biologist you've ever met in your life, and you learn so much from them. And so all these projects tend to have people from everywhere, and they you have your own skills, and you use those skills together to do what you're doing, to try to protect this species, to try to make it last for generations to come. And that's the same with the panda. I'm a American from South Jersey, and I'm working with this awesome team of scientists from China, and then Ben Killam from New Hampshire, and we're all working towards saving giant pandas and helping the wild populations. And so the moral for me, one of the big morals of the story is people around the world actually do constantly work together and we have differences, but you just work through them, and you build a better project because of that. You know, it's easy to be negative about globalization, about working with people all over the world, but you know, this is really my experience. You know, it's totally positive, and it's a totally a benefit.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of people working together to make a difference for pandas, and that's one really cool thing that's happening in this project.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have that many instances of, you know, Chinese and American, you know, scientists, you know, teaming up on a, you know, collective mission and shared goals, and that's what this story's about, and it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to ask you what's next, but I think we'll have a fortune cookie
Awesome.
on theme with the film.
Let's
See.
Let's see what our
What
fortune
your
say.
future holds according to the magical cookie.
This is risky.
I know.
The best way to answer the what's next question.
Yeah.
Oh my God, mine says I just won $50.
Yay! Enough to fund your next film.
That's right.
I have a cheerful letter or message is on its way to me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How about yours?
No, I'm serious.
Oh, it really did?
$50.
We're a nonprofit. I don't know if we can afford that.
No, I'll donate it back to the fleet. I'm just,
Great.
I'm just
Okay.
excited.
Yeah, that sounds good. Really, though, you're heading off to China. You're going back to work. And do you have another project on the horizon?
Well,
or
we're talking about a couple things, but I'm going to go sleep for a long time.
I
That's
think
what I'm
so.
gonna
I
do.
think you've earned it. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for being here. And Pandas is showing daily on the giant dome screen at the Fleet Science Center. Come and see it again and again.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks,
It's
Wendy.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.